The Deep Space Monitoring Station hummed with quiet efficiency as sensors detected an anomaly in Sector 7. Lieutenant Kira pressed her fingers against the cool metal console, watching as data streams painted a picture of something impossible. A ship hung motionless in the void, its design unlike anything in the Federation database. The hull gleamed with primitive metal plating, and crude exhaust ports suggested combustion-based propulsion systems that most civilizations had abandoned. Centuries ago, Thane studied the readings from his command chair, his blue-scaled fingers drumming against the armrest. As an Altarian diplomat with 40 years of peaceful contact experience, he had welcomed dozens of new species into the galactic community. Each first meeting followed established protocols designed to prevent misunderstandings and promote harmony. The situation appeared no different, just another young civilization taking its first steps into the larger universe. The unknown vessel transmitted a simple mathematical sequence, followed by basic pictographs that any intelligent species would recognize. Thane smiled, his gill slits fluttering with approval. These beings understood the importance of peaceful communication. He ordered his crew to respond with the standard Federation greeting package, containing basic scientific constants and cultural exchange protocols. Within hours, the alien ship moved closer under careful escort from Federation patrol vessels. The newcomers identified themselves as humans from a world called Earth, located in what they termed the Sol System. Their leader, a being called David Walsh, spoke through a translation device that converted his primitive audio signals into standard Federation language. His manner seemed respectful and curious, asking permission to send a small delegation aboard the Federation vessel, the first humans to walk through the airlock of the research ship. Harmony's edge appeared remarkably unremarkable. They stood upright on 2 legs, possessed 4 limbs total, and breathed oxygen like many Federation species. Their leader David carried himself with quiet confidence, while his companions Emma Torres and Rick Martinez moved with careful precision through the ship's corridors. Each human wore simple clothing and carried what appeared to be basic tools and personal items. Dr. Nex, the ship's chief cynobiologist, performed standard biological scans while the humans waited patiently. The results showed typical carbon-based life forms with no unusual capabilities or dangerous characteristics. Their brain activity indicated intelligence levels comparable to most Federation species, though their technology lagged centuries behind current galactic standards. The humans seemed fascinated by everything they saw, asking countless questions about Federation science, culture, and history. During the initial cultural exchange, the humans presented gifts from their homeworld. David offered what he called a multi-tool, demonstrating how it could cut, grip, measure, and perform various tasks. Emma shared samples of human art and music, while Rick displayed examples of their engineering capabilities. Each item appeared crude but functional, typical of a species still developing its technological foundation. Kira watched the proceedings with growing unease. Something about the humans bothered her, though she could not identify the source of her discomfort. Their questions seemed innocent enough, but they focused heavily on technical specifications, defensive capabilities, and resource allocation. When she mentioned her concerns to Thane, he dismissed them with gentle reproach. These beings had traveled between stars using primitive technology, which demonstrated remarkable ingenuity and peaceful intentions. The humans expressed wonder at Federation achievements, particularly their advanced materials science and energy manipulation techniques. They asked detailed questions about how Federation ships generated power, maintained life support, and coordinated with each other across vast distances. Emma seemed especially interested in their medical technology, while Rick focused on engineering systems. David inquired about Federation government structure and decision-making processes. As the hours passed, more details emerged about human civilization. They came from a world with diverse environments and numerous separate political entities that had only recently achieved global cooperation. Their history included countless conflicts, but they claimed to have moved beyond such primitive behaviors. They sought knowledge and friendship among the stars, hoping to learn from more advanced civilizations. The humans demonstrated remarkable adaptability during their visit. They quickly grasped Federation social customs and showed appropriate respect for different species' cultural requirements. When introduced to the ship's diverse crew, they interacted comfortably with everyone from the methane-breathing toxions to the crystalline silicates. Their behavior suggested a species naturally inclined toward diplomatic cooperation. However, Kira noticed disturbing patterns in their casual conversations. When Rick discussed human recreational activities, many involved competitive scenarios that simulated conflict or resource competition. Emma's descriptions of human entertainment often centered on stories about overcoming obstacles through clever application of available resources. David's comments about human history revealed a species that had developed countless ways to solve problems through creative use of tools and materials. The humans also displayed an unusual interest in seemingly unrelated systems throughout the ship. Rick asked about waste disposal processes, atmospheric recycling, and structural weak points under the guise of engineering curiosity. Emma inquired about psychological profiles of different species and their stress responses during emergencies. David's questions about communication protocols included detailed discussions of emergency procedures and security measures. When Thane offered to arrange a formal introduction to the Federation Council, the humans accepted with enthusiasm. They requested time to prepare appropriate presentations about their civilization and suggested bringing additional representatives from their homeworld. David mentioned that humans had many different specializations and that various experts could better explain different aspects of their society. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ship, they expressed gratitude for the warm welcome and shared additional gifts. These included what they called instructional materials, containing detailed information about human science, culture, and history. They also provided samples of human technology for Federation scientists to study, claiming these examples would help demonstrate their civilization's development level. After the humans departed, Kira remained troubled by subtle inconsistencies in their behavior. The beings who claimed to come from a peaceful, unified world spoke with terminology that suggested extensive knowledge of conflict, resource scarcity, and competitive survival strategies. Their innocent questions had systematically gathered comprehensive intelligence about Federation capabilities, vulnerabilities, and procedures. When she shared these observations with Thane, the experienced diplomat explained that many species carried cultural remnants from their violent pasts. The humans appeared genuinely committed to peaceful coexistence, and their obvious technological limitations made them pose no conceivable threat to the mighty Federation. He authorized extended cultural exchange protocols and began preparations for formally welcoming humanity into the galactic community. The research ship continued its patrol as the human vessel disappeared into the depths of space. In his quarters, Thane reviewed the initial contact reports with satisfaction, already planning the integration ceremonies that would mark another successful, peaceful first contact. Meanwhile, Kira studied recordings of the human visit, trying to understand why every innocent interaction felt like careful reconnaissance by beings who saw the universe very differently than anyone else in the galaxy. The massive research station New Horizon floated serenely in the Kepler system, its gleaming towers stretching across 12 kilometers of advanced Federation architecture. Dr. Next adjusted his crystalline facial features as he watched the human transport ship approach the main docking bay. 3 months had passed since first contact, and the Federation Council had approved an extensive cultural exchange program. The humans would spend several weeks learning about galactic civilization while Federation scientists studied their unique perspective on technology and social development. Emma Torres stepped through the airlock with 5 other human specialists, each carrying simple containers of personal belongings and research materials. The station's welcoming committee had prepared elaborate ceremonies, but the humans seemed more interested in the technical marvels surrounding them. Emma's eyes tracked the energy conduits running along the corridor walls, while her companion Rick Martinez studied the gravitational field generators with obvious fascination. The tour began in the main science laboratories, where Dr. Nex proudly displayed the Federation's greatest achievements in peaceful technology. The humans observed everything with intense concentration, asking detailed questions about energy efficiency, maintenance requirements, and operational parameters. Emma inquired about the molecular assemblers that could create any material configuration, while Rick focused on the power distribution systems that supplied energy throughout the massive station. Dr. Nex found the human questions refreshingly thorough compared to most visiting species, who typically expressed polite interest before moving on to cultural discussions. These beings wanted to understand not just what Federation technology could accomplish, but precisely how it functioned and what resources it required. Their curiosity seemed genuinely scientific rather than merely diplomatic, the crown jewel of the station tour was the Harmony Field generator, housed in a secured chamber at the station's core. This remarkable device could project a field of pacifying energy across several kilometers, calming aggressive impulses in any biological entity within its range. The technology had been instrumental in preventing conflicts throughout Federation space for over 2 centuries, making it the foundation of galactic peace. Emma listened intently as Dr. Nex explained the device's principles, taking careful notes about the field harmonics and biological interaction mechanisms. She asked about power requirements, field strength variations, and potential range modifications. When Dr. Nex mentioned that the device had never been reverse-engineered or duplicated by other species, Emma smiled and commented on the elegance of the engineering solutions involved. Rick, meanwhile, had befriended the station's maintenance staff, offering to help with routine repairs and upgrades. His willingness to perform manual labor impressed the workers, who had grown accustomed to visiting dignitaries avoiding such mundane tasks. Rick's easy humor and genuine interest in their work made him popular throughout the engineering sections, where crew members freely shared technical specifications and operational procedures. The human engineer learned about backup power systems, emergency protocols, and structural weak points that required regular monitoring. He asked intelligent questions about system redundancies and failure modes, claiming that human engineering philosophy emphasized understanding potential problems before they occurred. The maintenance staff appreciated his practical approach and began including him in planning sessions for upcoming upgrades. During off-duty hours, the humans introduced Federation officers to various activities from their homeworld. Emma organized what she called study groups, where participants analyzed complex problems and developed multiple solution strategies. The sessions involved examining scenarios where limited resources required creative applications, and participants competed to find the most effective approaches to challenging situations. Rick taught Federation crew members human games that emphasized strategic thinking and resource management. One activity called chess involved moving pieces across a board according to specific rules, with the objective of capturing the opponent's most important piece. Another game used cards to simulate resource allocation under uncertain conditions, teaching players to manage risk while gathering information about opponents' capabilities and intentions. The humans also demonstrated physical activities from their world, including various sports that involved competitive team coordination. They introduced a game called dodgeball, where participants attempted to strike opponents with thrown spheres while avoiding being hit themselves. The activity developed reflexes, spatial awareness, and tactical movement skills, though the humans presented it as simple entertainment. Dr. Nex began noticing patterns in the human activities that troubled him. Every cultural exchange seemed designed to teach strategic thinking, resource optimization, or competitive advantage. Even their artistic presentations focused on themes of overcoming obstacles through clever application of available tools and materials. Their literature contained countless stories about individuals or groups succeeding against overwhelming odds through preparation and adaptability. When he mentioned his observations to the station commander, his concerns were dismissed as cultural bias. The humans had proven themselves friendly and cooperative, showing no signs of aggressive intentions. Their primitive technology in small numbers made them pose no conceivable threat to Federation security. The commander suggested that Dr. Nex was simply unused to species that approached problem-solving from a competitive rather than cooperative perspective. The humans continued their cultural demonstrations with increasing sophistication. Emma presented human approaches to medical research, explaining how they developed treatments through systematic experimentation and testing. Her methodology involved assuming that any biological system could be modified or controlled given sufficient understanding of its mechanisms. She described this as simply applied scientific inquiry rather than medical weaponization. Rick shared human engineering principles that emphasize dual-purpose design and redundant functionality. He explained how human tools often served multiple functions to maximize efficiency in resource-limited environments. When Federation engineers pointed out that such designs sacrificed specialization for versatility, Rick agreed but noted that adaptability often proved more valuable than pure efficiency in uncertain conditions. The humans also inquired extensively about Federation defensive capabilities, though always in the context of academic curiosity about advanced technology. They asked about shield generators, sensor networks, and communication systems with the enthusiasm of students learning from master teachers. Their questions focused on operational principles rather than tactical applications, maintaining appropriate diplomatic boundaries while gathering comprehensive technical intelligence. As the cultural exchange progressed, more human specialists arrived on transport ships, each bringing expertise in different areas of human knowledge. The newcomers included individuals who specialized in psychology, logistics, communications, and various forms of applied science. Each visitor demonstrated the same pattern of friendly cooperation combined with systematic information gathering about Federation capabilities and procedures. Dr. Nex grew increasingly concerned about the cumulative intelligence the humans were acquiring, but found himself unable to identify any specific violations of cultural exchange protocols. The beings remained scrupulously polite and genuinely appreciative of Federation hospitality. Their questions stayed within acceptable boundaries, and their behavior suggested nothing more than healthy scientific curiosity about advanced galactic civilization. The station's security officers reported no unusual activities or unauthorized access attempts. The humans respected all restricted areas and followed safety protocols meticulously. Their personal belongings contained only basic tools and research materials appropriate for a cultural exchange mission. Yet somehow Dr. Nex felt as though the station was being carefully studied and cataloged by beings who saw potential applications that escaped Federation notice. During evening social gatherings, the humans shared stories from their homeworld that revealed disturbing aspects of their species' development. They spoke casually of historical periods when different human groups competed violently for resources, describing these conflicts as learning experiences that taught valuable lessons about preparation and strategic thinking. They claimed to have moved beyond such primitive behaviors, but their casual knowledge of warfare techniques suggested otherwise. The cultural exchange neared its planned conclusion as Federation officials prepared formal recommendations for humanity's integration into galactic society. The humans had proven themselves intelligent, adaptable, and eager to learn from more advanced civilizations. Their primitive technology and peaceful demeanor suggested they would make ideal junior members of the Federation, contributing unique perspectives while benefiting from access to advanced galactic knowledge and resources. The Grand Assembly Hall on Pacifica Prime buzzed with anticipation as representatives from 47 different species gathered to witness humanity's formal introduction to galactic civilization. The massive amphitheater stretched across several acres, its crystalline walls refracting light from the planet's twin suns into spectacular patterns that danced across the assembled delegates. Each species had sent their finest diplomats and scientists to evaluate these newcomers who had captured Federation attention with their unique perspective on technology and problem-solving. Ambassador Walsh stood quietly in the preparation chamber, reviewing his presentation materials one final time. 6 months of careful observation had provided humanity with an unprecedented understanding of galactic civilization, its capabilities, and most importantly, its assumptions about how intelligent species should behave. The demonstration he was about to deliver would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. Though the assembled delegates had no idea what they were about to witness, the presentation began with standard diplomatic protocols as Walsh addressed the assembly in measured, respectful tones. He thanked the Federation for their generous hospitality and expressed humanity's eagerness to contribute to galactic peace and prosperity. The delegates settled back in their seats, expecting another routine display of primitive but charming technology from a species that would require centuries of development before making meaningful contributions to advanced galactic society. Lavra Kim stepped forward with her first demonstration, carrying what appeared to be simple containers of common chemicals. She explained that humans had developed efficient methods for solving practical problems using readily available materials, and wanted to share some basic techniques that might prove useful to other species. The delegates watched politely as she began combining various substances in precise proportions, describing the process as routine chemistry that human children learned in their educational institutions. The resulting explosion shattered the reinforced demonstration platform and sent shockwaves through the assembly hall. Delegates dove for cover as debris rained down around them, while emergency force fields activated to protect the audience from the unexpected blast. Lavra calmly explained that this represented a standard human approach to obstacle removal, commonly used in mining operations and construction projects throughout human space. Shocked murmurs rippled through the assembly as the implications became clear. The substances Lavra had combined were available on virtually every inhabited world in the galaxy, used daily for cleaning, manufacturing, and medical purposes. No Federation species had ever considered combining them in ways that released such devastating amounts of energy. The humans had just demonstrated that any world in the galaxy contained the raw materials for weapons of mass destruction. Paul Grant took the stage next, wheeling forward a collection of metal pipes, springs, and basic electronic components that he claimed represented typical human construction materials. He explained that humans often needed to create specialized tools for specific tasks, and had developed efficient techniques for combining simple materials into complex functional devices. The delegates watched nervously as he began assembling the components with practiced efficiency. The device he constructed resembled a large tube mounted on a rotating base, with electronic controls that hummed quietly as they powered up. Paul loaded a simple metal sphere into one end of the tube and aimed it at a target constructed from standard Federation hull plating. When he activated the device, the sphere punched through 3 layers of advanced armor material that was supposed to withstand impacts from space, debris, and energy weapons. Paul cheerfully explained that human children often built similar devices as educational projects, learning basic principles of physics and engineering through hands-on experimentation. He noted that the projectile launcher could be scaled up or down depending on available materials, and that more sophisticated versions could achieve much greater range and accuracy. The assembled delegates realized that humans could manufacture devastating weapons using materials found in any standard construction facility. The most disturbing revelation came when Emma Torres approached the podium carrying a small device that she claimed represented human medical research capabilities. She explained that humans had studied the Federation's wonderful harmony field technology and developed some interesting applications based on their understanding of the underlying principles. The device in her hands appeared to be a modified version of the pacification technology that formed the foundation of galactic peace. Emma activated the device and directed its output toward a group of volunteer test subjects from various Federation species. Instead of the expected calming effect, the volunteers immediately became agitated and aggressive, their eyes glazing over as primitive fight-or-flight responses overwhelmed their rational minds. Security forces rushed to sedate the affected individuals before they could harm themselves or others. The human scientists calmly explained that reversing the polarity of the harmony field created the opposite effect, stimulating aggressive impulses rather than suppressing them. She noted that humans naturally thought in terms of dual applications for any technology, always considering how tools designed for one purpose could be modified to serve different functions. The implications terrified the assembly as they realized their most trusted peacekeeping technology could be turned into a weapon of unimaginable horror. Walsh returned to the podium as emergency crews worked to repair the damaged demonstration area and treat the affected volunteers. He apologized for any inconvenience caused by the presentations, explaining that humans sometimes forgot that other species might not share their casual familiarity with dangerous applications of common technology. He assured the assembly that these demonstrations represented only the most basic examples of human problem-solving capabilities. The human commander went on to explain that his species had spent the past 6 months conducting what he termed a comprehensive security assessment of Federation space. Humans had identified critical vulnerabilities in defensive systems, communication networks, and governmental structures throughout the galaxy. They had developed countermeasures for every major Federation technology and created detailed intelligence profiles of all member species. Walsh revealed that human observers had infiltrated key installations throughout Federation territory, gathering information about industrial capabilities, resource distribution, and strategic choke points. The cultural exchange program had provided perfect cover for the most extensive intelligence operation in galactic history, conducted under the noses of species who assumed that primitive newcomers posed no possible threat to advanced galactic civilization. The assembly erupted in chaos as delegates realized the full scope of human activities. Species that had welcomed human visitors with open arms now understood that their guests had been systematically cataloging weaknesses and developing attack strategies. The beings they had dismissed as harmless primitives had demonstrated the ability to weaponize virtually anything in their environment. Security forces surrounded the human delegation, but Walsh raised his hands peacefully and explained that humanity had no intention of using their capabilities aggressively. The demonstrations served to illustrate an important point about the fundamental differences between human and Federation thinking. Humans prepared for conflict not because they sought war, but because they assumed others eventually would. Dr. Next watched in horror from the VIP section as his worst fears proved justified. The friendly, curious beings who had charmed his research staff were revealed as master strategists, who viewed the universe as a collection of potential threats and opportunities. Their innocent questions had been carefully designed to gather intelligence, while their cultural gifts had been subtle weapons disguised as primitive artwork. The Grand Assembly dissolved into emergency sessions as species representatives demanded immediate action against the human threat. Some called for military intervention to prevent further human expansion, while others advocated for immediate diplomatic solutions to contain the damage. The Federation Council faced its greatest crisis in over a millennium, confronted by a species that challenged every assumption about how intelligent beings should interact. Walsh concluded his presentation by offering humanity's services as security consultants to the Federation. He noted that humans could help other species identify vulnerabilities in their defenses and develop more robust protective measures. The galaxy needed to understand that peaceful intentions were not sufficient protection against species that might not share such noble goals. As the assembly hall emptied amid frantic discussions and emergency planning sessions, the human delegation packed their demonstration materials with the same calm efficiency they had shown throughout their visit. They had successfully introduced themselves to galactic civilization in a way that would never be forgotten, establishing humanity as a force that could not be ignored or dismissed. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the Federation Council chambers as security protocols locked down the entire facility. Thane sat across from Walsh in the hastily arranged meeting room, his blue scales darkened with stress patterns that betrayed his inner turmoil. The comfortable illusions of the past 6 months had shattered completely, leaving the veteran diplomat struggling to understand how badly he had misjudged the situation. Walsh leaned back in his chair with the relaxed posture of someone completely in control of the circumstances. The friendly mask he had worn during months of cultural exchange had fallen away, revealing the calculating intelligence beneath. His eyes moved constantly around the room, cataloging details and escape routes with the automatic awareness of a predator evaluating its environment. The human commander began speaking in measured tones that carried none of the humble gratitude Thane remembered from their first meeting. Walsh explained that humanity had approached first contact as they approached everything else, with careful preparation and contingency planning for multiple scenarios. The 6 months of cultural exchange had provided opportunities to gather intelligence that exceeded their most optimistic projections. Humans had mapped every significant Federation installation within 50 light-years of their territory, analyzed the defensive capabilities of major fleet elements, and identified critical vulnerabilities in communication networks that connected thousands of worlds. More importantly, they had studied the psychological profiles of dozens of species, learning how to exploit their assumptions about peace, cooperation, and civilized behavior. Walsh revealed that human infiltration teams had penetrated far deeper into Federation space than anyone suspected. While the official cultural exchange drew attention to carefully controlled demonstrations, other human operatives had been systematically gathering intelligence throughout the galaxy. They had accessed classified databases, studied military installations, and developed comprehensive plans for disrupting Federation operations if necessary. The scope of human activities shocked Thane beyond his capacity to process the information effectively. Species that had existed peacefully for millennia had been analyzed like laboratory specimens, their strengths and weaknesses catalogued with clinical precision. The humans had treated galactic civilization as a potential opponent to be studied and prepared for, rather than a community to join. Thane asked why humanity had gone to such extraordinary lengths when the Federation posed no threat to their development. Walsh smiled with what might have been genuine amusement as he explained the fundamental difference between human and Federation thinking. Humans did not prepare for conflict because they were aggressive, but because they assumed that conflict was inevitable given sufficient time in changing circumstances. Human history provided countless examples of peaceful civilizations, destroyed by more aggressive neighbors who exploited their victims' assumptions about rational behavior and mutual benefit. Humans had learned that survival required constant vigilance and preparation for scenarios that seemed unlikely but carried catastrophic consequences if they occurred. They could not afford to assume that other species would remain peaceful forever. Walsh went on to explain that humans did not see weapons and tools as separate categories of objects. Everything in their environment represented potential resources for accomplishing specific objectives, whether those objectives involved construction, communication, or destruction. This perspective made them extraordinarily dangerous to species that had forgotten how to think in terms of conflict and competition. The human ability to weaponize common materials and everyday technology stemmed from their evolutionary history as persistence hunters who succeeded through endurance, adaptability, and creative problem-solving rather than specialized physical capabilities. They had survived by learning to use whatever resources their environment provided, developing mental frameworks that automatically evaluated multiple applications for any object or system. Dr. Nex burst into the meeting room with security escorts, his crystalline features flickering with agitation as he reported his discovery about the station's harmony field generator. Human technicians had indeed modified the system during their visit, but not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of reversing its function to create aggression, they had converted it into a sophisticated communication relay that could coordinate activities across vast distances. The modified device now served as a hub for a network of similar installations throughout Federation space, all of them compromised during previous human visits and cultural exchanges. Walsh confirmed that humanity could now communicate instantly with operatives positioned throughout the galaxy, using the Federation's own peacekeeping technology as the foundation for their intelligence network. Thane realized with growing horror that every act of Federation hospitality had been turned against them. The humans had used their access to advanced technology not to learn and benefit from galactic civilization, but to identify ways to defeat it if necessary. They had approached every interaction as an opportunity to gather intelligence and develop advantages over potential opponents. When Thane asked about human intentions now that their capabilities had been revealed, Walsh explained that humanity preferred to avoid conflict whenever possible. However, they had learned from bitter experience that good intentions provided no protection against species that might eventually develop hostile goals. The best way to maintain peace was to ensure that potential enemies understood the costs of aggression. The human commander revealed that similar intelligence-gathering operations were already underway in other sectors of the galaxy, as humanity systematically mapped and analyzed every major civilization within their sphere of interest. They were building a comprehensive understanding of galactic power structures, resource distribution, and strategic vulnerabilities that would serve them well regardless of how future relationships developed. Walsh noted that humans had actually done the Federation a considerable service by exposing the weaknesses in their security systems and assumptions about civilized behavior. Other species with less benevolent intentions could have exploited the same vulnerabilities to devastating effect. Humanity was offering to help the Federation develop more robust defensive measures based on realistic assessments of potential threats. The meeting was interrupted by reports of similar revelations occurring throughout Federation space as human operatives revealed themselves and their activities to local authorities. The coordinated disclosure demonstrated the scope and sophistication of human planning, while also making it clear that resistance would be futile given how thoroughly they had penetrated Federation systems. Thane struggled to comprehend how his species could have been so thoroughly outmaneuvered by beings they had considered primitive and harmless. Walsh patiently explained that Federation assumptions about technological superiority had blinded them to other forms of intelligence and capability. Humans excelled at strategic thinking, adaptive problem-solving, and psychological manipulation in ways that advanced technology could not easily counter. The human commander also revealed that his species had developed extensive contingency plans for various scenarios involving Federation response to their activities. They had identified ways to cripple communication networks, disrupt supply chains, and neutralize military assets using techniques that exploited the very technological sophistication that the Federation considered their greatest strength. However, Walsh emphasized that humanity preferred cooperation to conflict whenever possible. They were prepared to share their unique capabilities with Federation species in exchange for mutual respect and appropriate recognition of their strategic importance. The galaxy would be safer if everyone understood that peaceful civilizations needed to remain capable of defending themselves against less civilized opponents. As the implications of human activities became clear, Thane realized that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The age of naive peaceful coexistence was ending, replaced by a new era where survival required the kind of strategic thinking that humans had never abandoned. Species throughout the Federation would need to learn from humanity or risk becoming victims of their own assumptions about the nature of intelligent behavior. The meeting concluded with Walsh offering to establish formal protocols for human Federation cooperation based on realistic assessments of mutual capabilities and interests. He suggested that the galaxy would benefit from human expertise in security analysis and strategic planning, while humanity could learn from Federation advances in technology and peaceful governance. Thane left the meeting with his worldview permanently altered, understanding that his species faced a choice between adapting to new realities or risking irrelevance in a universe where survival required more than good intentions and advanced technology. The Federation Defense Academy occupied a sprawling complex on Earth's northern continent, its gleaming structures rising from ancient mountains that had witnessed humanity's entire evolutionary journey. Students from dozens of species walked through corridors where human instructors taught courses that would have been unimaginable just 6 months earlier. The galaxy's first military academy represented the most dramatic transformation in galactic civilization since the founding of the Federation itself. Ambassador. Walsh reviewed reports from the Academy's first graduating class as morning light streamed through his office windows. The curriculum covered everything from improvised weapons construction to psychological warfare techniques, all taught within the ethical framework of defensive preparation rather than aggressive conquest. Federation species were learning to think like humans while maintaining their commitment to peaceful coexistence whenever possible. Thane struggled with advanced tactical analysis in Professor Martinez's classroom, his diplomatic training ill-suited for scenarios involving resource competition and strategic deception. The human instructor patiently explained how peaceful civilizations could prepare for potential conflicts without abandoning their core values. The key was understanding that defensive capabilities deterred aggression more effectively than naive assumptions about universal peaceful intentions. The classroom exercises challenged every assumption Thane had developed during his diplomatic career. Students analyzed historical conflicts from human history, learning how superior technology had often failed against inferior forces that employed better strategy and adaptive thinking. They studied examples of civilizations destroyed because they could not imagine that others might not share their peaceful values. Dr. Torres led seminars on dual-use technology assessment, teaching Federation scientists to evaluate their own innovations from an adversarial perspective. Every new invention now underwent rigorous analysis to identify potential weapons applications and develop appropriate safeguards. The process had already revealed disturbing vulnerabilities in dozens of supposedly benign Federation technologies. The modified harmony field generators throughout Federation space now serve dual functions as communication networks and early warning systems. Human technicians had taught Federation engineers how to detect unauthorized modifications and recognize signs of infiltration by potentially hostile forces. The devices that had once symbolized naive trust in universal peaceful behavior now represented sophisticated defensive preparation. Rick Martinez supervised construction of the Academy's practical training facilities, where students learned to weaponize common materials under carefully controlled conditions. The exercises taught important lessons about vulnerability assessment and resource security, while also demonstrating why humans automatically evaluated everything in their environment as potential tools for accomplishing various objectives. Federation species discovered that their technological sophistication had made them complacent about basic security principles that less advanced civilizations understood instinctively. Human instructors taught courses on operational security, compartmentalization of sensitive information, and recognition of intelligence gathering, activities disguised as innocent cultural exchange. The psychological impact of human revelations had transformed galactic society in unexpected ways. Species that had coexisted peacefully for centuries began viewing each other with new wariness, wondering what capabilities their neighbors might be hiding behind facades of cooperative friendship. The age of innocent trust was ending, replaced by more mature understanding of the need for verification and defensive preparation. Kira found herself promoted to head of Federation security, tasked with implementing human-developed protocols for intelligence analysis and threat assessment. Her early warnings about human behavior had proven prophetic, earning her recognition as one of the few Federation officers who understood the implications of humanity's strategic perspective before it was too late. The new security protocols required fundamental changes in how Federation species interacted with each other and with newly contacted civilizations. Every first contact situation now included comprehensive intelligence assessment and defensive preparation, while maintaining diplomatic courtesy and offers of peaceful cooperation. The galaxy had learned to hope for the best while preparing for less favorable possibilities. Human advisory teams worked throughout Federation space, helping member species identify vulnerabilities in their defenses and develop more robust protective measures. The process revealed that virtually every major installation had security flaws that could be exploited by adversaries who thought like humans. Closing these gaps required adopting human perspectives on creative problem-solving and adaptive thinking. The Federation Council had restructured itself to include human representatives in key decision-making roles. Walsh served as Director of Strategic Assessment, providing analysis of potential threats and recommendations for defensive preparations. His insights had already prevented several diplomatic disasters where Federation assumptions about civilized behavior would have led to exploitation by less cooperative species. Dr. Next established research programs dedicated to understanding the human approach to dual-use technology assessment. Federation scientists learned to evaluate their innovations from adversarial perspectives, identifying potential weapons applications and developing appropriate countermeasures. The process had slowed technological development but significantly improved security throughout galactic civilization. The cultural exchange programs continued with new protocols that balanced openness with appropriate caution. Visiting species underwent discreet security assessment while enjoying Federation hospitality, and their activities were monitored for signs of intelligence gathering or hostile preparation. The galaxy had learned to maintain diplomatic courtesy while protecting vital interests, trade relationships, adapted to include security considerations that had been ignored during the naive era of universal trust. Human analysts helped Federation species evaluate economic partnerships for potential strategic vulnerabilities, while also identifying opportunities to develop mutual dependencies that discouraged conflict. Commerce became an instrument of defensive strategy rather than mere profit-seeking. Emma Torres led research into defensive applications of advanced Federation technology, developing countermeasures for the same systems that humans had learned to exploit. Her work ensured that future adversaries would find the galaxy better prepared to resist the kind of systematic infiltration and analysis that humanity had demonstrated. The Federation was learning to protect itself against enemies who thought like humans. Communication networks throughout Federation space now included redundant security measures and alternative routing systems that could function even if primary nodes were compromised. Human expertise in network analysis had revealed critical vulnerabilities that hostile forces could have exploited to cripple galactic civilization's ability to coordinate defensive responses. The transformation extended beyond military preparations to include fundamental changes in how Federation species approached problem-solving and strategic planning. Human instructors taught courses on competitive thinking, resource optimization, and scenario analysis that helped other species develop more robust decision-making capabilities. New civilizations encountered by Federation exploration teams now faced more sophisticated first contact protocols that balanced diplomatic courtesy with appropriate security measures. The galaxy had learned to offer friendship while maintaining defensive preparations in case peaceful overtures were rejected or exploited by species with less benevolent intentions. Thane graduated from the Academy's Diplomatic Security program with new appreciation for the complexities of interspecies relations in a universe where not all intelligent beings shared Federation values. His training included techniques for recognizing deception, assessing hidden capabilities, and maintaining diplomatic progress while protecting vital interests. The Academy's success led to establishment of similar institutions throughout Federation space, each adapted to local species' capabilities and cultural requirements. The curriculum emphasized defensive preparation and strategic thinking within ethical frameworks that maintain commitment to peaceful coexistence whenever possible. The galaxy's newest challenge arrived when long-range sensors detected an approaching fleet from beyond the outer rim. The Vorthan Empire had been expanding aggressively through distant sectors, conquering peaceful civilizations that lacked adequate defensive preparations. Their scouts had finally reached Federation territory, expecting to find another collection of naive species ripe for exploitation. Human intelligence networks provided early warning of Vorthan intentions and capabilities, allowing the Federation to prepare defensive measures months before the enemy fleet arrived. The response demonstrated how thoroughly human strategic thinking had transformed galactic civilization's approach to external threats. Instead of reactive diplomacy, the Federation now engaged in proactive defensive planning. Walsh coordinated the multi-species response from his command center on Earth, utilizing communication networks that human technicians had secured against infiltration and sabotage. The Harmony field generators served as coordination hubs for defensive operations while also maintaining their original function of promoting calm cooperation among Allied forces. When the Vorthan fleet finally entered Federation space, they encountered defensive preparations unlike anything in their previous conquest experience. Their standard tactics of technological superiority and psychological intimidation failed against opponents, who had learned to think several moves ahead. The Federation had become a much more difficult target than the Vorthans had anticipated. The conflict resolution came through negotiated settlement rather than military confrontation, but only because the Vorthans recognized that conquest would cost more than any potential benefits. Human-trained Federation negotiators understood how to demonstrate strength while offering face-saving alternatives to potential adversaries. The galaxy had learned to discourage aggression through preparation rather than weakness. The successful defense marked the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization, where peaceful species maintained their values while developing the strategic capabilities necessary to protect those values from less cooperative neighbors. Humanity had taught the galaxy that peace required strength, and that preparation for conflict often prevented the need for actual fighting. Years later, as new species continued joining the Federation under updated protocols that balanced openness with appropriate security measures, the transformation seemed complete. The galaxy had evolved from naive trust to mature wisdom, understanding that intelligent beings could pursue peaceful cooperation while remaining prepared for less favorable possibilities. Emma Torres published her comprehensive study of defensive technology applications, providing guidelines that help species throughout the galaxy evaluate their innovations for potential vulnerabilities. Her work established principles for dual-use assessment that became standard practice for technological development in civilized space. The human contribution to galactic civilization extended far beyond military preparation to include fundamental improvements in strategic thinking, resource management, and long-term planning. Federation species had learned to consider multiple scenarios and prepare for various contingencies, while maintaining their commitment to peaceful cooperation as the preferred approach to interspecies relations. The Academy continued producing graduates who understood both the importance of defensive preparation and the value of peaceful coexistence. They carried human strategic thinking throughout the galaxy while adapting it to local cultures and values. The synthesis of human pragmatism with Federation idealism created a more robust foundation for galactic civilization. In his final report as Academy Director, Walsh noted that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not their weapons or tactics, but their perspective on the nature of intelligent behavior. They had taught other species that survival required assuming the worst while hoping for the best, and that peaceful civilizations needed to remain capable of defending their values against those who did not share them. The Federation had learned humanity's most important lesson. In a universe full of potential threats, the best way to maintain peace was to be quietly, competently, and overwhelmingly prepared for war. The galaxy was safer because it's peaceful. Species had finally understood that good intentions required the backing of defensive capabilities to remain effective against less civilized opponents. As Thane reviewed his graduation certificate from the Tactical Analysis program, he reflected on how much the galaxy had changed since that first innocent meeting with the human delegation. The transformation had been painful but necessary, replacing dangerous naivety with mature wisdom about the realities of survival in a universe where not all intelligent species shared the same values or peaceful intentions.